In 2010, there was a horrible accident in the suburban California community of San Bruno. A natural gas pipeline exploded. People were injured, some were killed, homes were destroyed. In addition to the settlement PG&E reached to help with recovery, there was an additional cash settlement to help the larger community, and a nonprofit that administers this fund that was established by PG&E is called the San Bruno Community Foundation. Leslie Hatamiya is executive director of the foundation, and it's not her first endeavor in shedding light on injustice. Leslie's a third-generation Japanese American, and she wrote a book about the aftermath of the Japanese American internment camps during World War II. The book is called Righting a Wrong, Japanese Americans and the Passage of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. She also worked for me when I was a senator for a few years. I'm very glad Leslie's here to talk, and Leslie, welcome to American Voices.
Thank you, Bill. Glad to be here with you.
So tell us about that day, about the PG&E explosion, and what do you remember about that day?
That day, well, I do live in San Bruno, about a mile north of the explosion site. It happened right around dinner time. I had just gotten home. We looked out the front window and saw the fire coming over the hill and the smoke, and realized that something really bad had happened in our town. At that point, no one really knew what had happened, so it was frightening.
So the responsible party, PG&E, did something about it. They can't get the lives back, obviously, but they did start this foundation that oversees a fund that they established. What's the mission of the foundation, and what do you do?
So in addition to the $50 million that PG&E gave to the city of San Bruno to help the city recover from the gas pipeline explosion and rebuild that neighborhood, was a $70 million restitution fund that was to be used for the benefit of the greater San Bruno community, with the belief that the entire city, the entire community suffered a tragic loss from that explosion, not just the people who lived in that specific neighborhood. So out of that came the San Bruno Community Foundation, which the city of San Bruno created to administer the restitution funds with lasting investments in public infrastructure, public community facilities, through grant programs, through scholarship programs. We're really there to serve the people of San Bruno.
Well, so what does it offer people?
Yeah, the big question on everybody's mind was, what are you going to do with the money? One of the first things we did when I came on board was hold a community listening campaign. One of the things we heard loud and clear among a whole host of community needs, of course, was a desire for new community facilities. Most of the community facilities in town, the library, the recreation center, the community pool, all were built in the 1950s and had not seen significant renovation since that time. And so we revamped our strategy, decided to spend a significant portion of the restitution funds outright, and committed to dedicating $50 million of the $70 million to at least one new community facility in town. And now under construction in San Bruno City Park, our main community park, is a new San Bruno Recreation and Aquatic Center, which is going to be a fantastic new facility that will have community spaces, recreation facilities, including a gym and workout spaces, both an indoor and outdoor pool, to really serve the recreational needs of our community. We have started a number of other programs, including a scholarship program. It's called the Crestmore Neighborhood Memorial Scholarship, and that was created as our first program in honor of the Crestmore neighborhood and those who were most directly affected by the gas line explosion. We give multi-year scholarships to San Bruno students headed to college. And it is not just for the top students, but for students who have been deeply engaged in the San Bruno community and in community service and giving back. One was a community college student, a 27-year-old single father who had full custody of his 3-year-old autistic son at the time he applied for our scholarship. He was determined to care for his son while also getting a college degree, which he knew he needed to provide a better life for himself and his son. Our scholarship gave him $10,000 to help him when he transferred from community college to a four-year university. He still had to juggle a part-time job, full course load, and taking care of his
Wow.
son, but our scholarship gave him a little bit of relief, right? So that he didn't have to work quite as much
Hmm.
and able to juggle all of these demanding pressures on him. He graduated in 2022 with a degree in business administration and is now pursuing a path in college administration. He's just one of many of our scholarship winners that we are very proud of, and are glad to help him realize his dreams of getting a college
All right.
education to do better for both his son, himself, and his community. Another inspiring scholarship winner was a 2017 Crestmore Scholar. She'd already overcome significant challenges when she applied for a scholarship as a 31-year-old single mother. She had struggled in her youth with a drug addiction and had been previously unhoused, but she cleaned up, began community college, and really turned her life around.
Hmm.
During community college, she volunteered at the county jail and worked at the college helping students receive public benefits. And with our scholarship, she transferred to the University of San Francisco and earned her degree in business management. During that time, she worked for Second Harvest Food Bank, volunteered at the county jail and juvenile hall, and raised her son. She then was admitted to a master's program in community health and prevention at Stanford, and now works at UCSF School of Nursing, setting up clinical placements for nursing students.
Leslie, that is so inspirational.
It is. And when she came back and talked to one of our later cohorts of Crestmore Scholars, she talked about how public service and giving back to her community had been a huge motivation for her to finish her education and to pursue now a career helping others.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank San Bruno Community Foundation. For myself, being a 2017 recipient is truly an honor because my family and I have been living in the Crestmore neighborhood for about 16 years, and we lived through the fire explosion. And, I could remember, running away from the fire and pushing my grandma down the street, and just the fear and the confusion and the doubt that was going on as a young person. But when I went back to college in 2014 to CSM, I graduated with an associate degree in communications, and I knew I wanted to pursue my education somewhere else. So I applied to UC Santa Cruz, and I got in, but I needed help paying for college. So I applied to the Crestmore Neighborhood Scholarship, and I got it. And when I received the scholarship, I circled around and realized to myself that, in a moment of tragedy, there was a beacon of light. There was a beacon of hope. And that form of hope was that scholarship that helped me get through college. And because of that, I'm a first generation college graduate.
I just wanted to express my gratitude into having this opportunity. I'm sure that I wasn't the only one who struggled, not with just this year, but with school in general. And this past year has been really unmotivating for me. Losing all that motivation really caused me to question what I wanted to do or if it was worth it. And this opportunity really gave me some light into, thinking, maybe I should just try it out and see how it goes from there instead of giving up and, having such a pessimistic attitude. So thank you, truly, this opportunity. I won't let you guys down.
Going along with what Michael was saying, this year was extremely difficult for me as well. And I'm so grateful for having received this scholarship. It's really going to help me a lot. I don't know if I would be going to UCLA without it, in all honesty. Making my dreams come true, I guess. And just like Michael said, I will not be letting you guys down. I will be coming back and letting you guys know, updating you on everything.
I think it's a great example to communities across this country that there are great things you can do if you're farsighted.
One other program we started is we've been giving out about $300,000 in community grants to usually between 20 and 30 organizations. And it's everything from, really grassroots youth sports organizations that are all volunteer based, as San Bruno is a very sports oriented town. So supporting the kids that way, to much more established social service agencies like Life Moves, which is one of the main homelessness agencies in the area.
Mhm.
The Society of St. Vincent de Paul, which does a lot of other social service efforts, Legal Aid, Society of San Mateo, which has an amazing program to help local residents who are at risk of eviction and risking homelessness to get legal support that they need.
Well, one of the things that just strikes me about what you've described that the foundation does is how tangible it is, how much it affects people's lives directly. That must be tremendously rewarding for you.
It is tremendously rewarding, especially because this is the community in which I live, where I've raised my kids, and I know everyone in this community. It's rewarding to know that almost anybody you meet in town probably has benefited in some way from one of our different grants or programs, whether it's from the nonprofit dental health program that we fund through our community grants program, which provides dental services to low-income kids through our schools.
Well, yeah, and it's actually a great achievement. I imagine when you dedicate that center, you're going to be very proud, and you should be. Let me change the subject a minute. Let's talk about your family history. During World War II, as most people know, patriotic Japanese Americans, simply because of their ancestry, were sent to internment camps and because they were considered a threat. Internment camps in Arizona and Wyoming and other places. When you were a child, obviously you were born long after World War II, but when you were a child, did your parents talk to you about the internment camps?
They did. And I am a third generation Japanese American. And both of my parents and their siblings and parents were interned during World War II. My dad was a 13-year-old who was originally sent to Tule Lake in northeastern California and then eventually sent to the Amachi internment camp in Colorado. My mom was a 7-year-old at the time of World War II, and her family was first sent to the Tanforan Assembly Center here in San Bruno, which gives me a local connection as well. And then her family was sent to the Topaz internment camp in Utah. Because both of my parents were children at the time of the internment, I think they internalized what happened a little differently than a lot of their older siblings and their parents and older generations of Japanese Americans who were, very ashamed by what happened to them during the war. And sort of the traditional Japanese tendency was to, when they came back from the war, was to not talk about what had happened, but to just try to assimilate and to prove how American they were, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think because my parents were a little younger and it affected them a little bit differently, they did share stories of what happened during the war with me and my brothers. We knew about it growing up. A lot of other Japanese Americans actually growing up didn't even know what had happened to their parents, but we grew up knowing about it. My parents were both very active in the local chapter of the Japanese American Citizens League. And when the effort to push for legislative action to provide redress for the Japanese Americans during the 1970s and 80s, my parents were active in that campaign, which is what led to my personal interest in the internment and the redress movement, and led me to eventually write a book on how that piece of legislation was passed in the late 1980s.
So basically, it was your own biography that led you to write the book.
It was.
So tell us what the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 does.
So the Civil Liberties Act of 1988, which is also known as the Japanese American Redress Legislation, was an act that acknowledged that what had happened to the Japanese Americans during World War II was wrong, It provided a national apology to the 120,000 Japanese Americans who were incarcerated during the war, and provided monetary compensation for their loss of constitutional rights. At the time of the bill's passage, all surviving Japanese Americans who had been interned were entitled to $20,000 in monetary compensation for their loss of constitutional rights.
So, Leslie, we could go on and on. I haven't even talked to you about being my chief of staff for a short period of time at 24 years of age. Now, that was something. I won't ask you a lot about that. But it was a great honor to have you. You were absolutely fabulous.
Thank you.
Growing up, was there someone in your life who inspired you to go on this path and fight injustice?
My parents were probably the greatest inspiration for me. I mean, my dad was a farmer. My mom was a homemaker. They were deeply engaged in the community, not just in the local Japanese American community, but also at our schools and just other community groups. And their example is really what set the example for me when I became older and raised my own family and tried to be active in my local community, active in my kids' schools. They set that example. And, really their active participation in the redress legislation campaign really has been one of the biggest motivating factors, I think, in my professional career. It's what interested me in how Congress works in political science and set me off in that path in college. It's in some ways what led me to work for you in the Senate and to get to see firsthand what I had studied from an academic perspective. And it's what still continues to motivate me, doing the work I do now as a nonprofit executive director. One personal connection that my work at the San Bruno Community Foundation has had to my family history is San Bruno is the home of the Tanforan Assembly Center. It was the Tanforan racetrack prior to World War II. And it was one of, I believe, 15 or 17 assembly centers that were set up immediately in the aftermath of the bombing of Pearl Harbor and the march to intern all of the Japanese Americans. My mom, who lived in the East Bay, in the Bay Area, was sent with her family to Tanforan. And so that is my own personal first connection with San Bruno, which is kind of just amazing when you think about it. And one of actually the proudest investments that the foundation has made since I've been here has been to support the Tanforan Memorial. And so there had been an effort for the past decade to have a memorial in San Bruno to remember the 8,000 Japanese Americans who were interned at the Tanforan Assembly Center. That decade of hard work to raise the funds and to find a location finally came to fruition this past August with the opening of the Tanforan Memorial at the San Bruno BART station. My foundation contributed $200,000 to that $1 million plus effort. So now there is this phenomenal memorial right outside our main shopping center and our BART station that remembers what happened during World War II right here in San Bruno. We just had an amazing ribbon cutting ceremony of the opening of that. And my mother, who is 87 years old, and my dad, who's 93, made the trip to participate in that ribbon cutting event, which was personally just very meaningful that they got to be a part of that and to see that our community is remembering what they went through and making sure that that sad chapter of American history is not forgotten.
Yeah, a lot of tears probably at that event.
There were. It was very meaningful, but very uplifting as well.
Shows that you can make things better in life. You can make things better in history. You can tell the truth and move forward.
Exactly.
Leslie, thank you for being here, telling us about your career and about the San Bruno Community Foundation. Really appreciate it. You've always been a very special person in my life, and I'm so glad you're finally coming on the show.
Thank you, Bill. It's been a wonderful opportunity to share this story with you.
I've been speaking with Leslie Hatamiya, Executive Director of the San Bruno Community Foundation. She's also the author of Righting a Wrong, Japanese Americans and the Passage of the Civil Liberties Act of 1988. Thank you for listening to American Voices here on my YouTube channel. For more interviews celebrating the goodness and creativity of the American people, click the subscribe button below.